the Libya business.
Right, let we interrupt that because we're going to go to Sandringham. The Queen and Duke of Edinburgh been at church there, and they're just leaving. Our correspondent, Mark Worthington, I think, can join us. Mark? No, we're going to hear from him just a moment. But in the meantime, there we are. That's the royal family, or two members of the royal family. I should say the two most senior members of the royal family. Very important day because it's the eve of the anniversary tomorrow of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, because it was exactly 60 years ago, on February the 6th, 1952, that she was on a visit to Kenya, that she learned that her father, King George VI, had died. And she, of course, been on the throne, immediately became Queen. The coronation wasn't to be for another year, but she became Queen then. And she has just been at a church service there in Sandringham, at the Church of St Peter and St Paul in West Newton, not very far from her country home of Sandringham, as I say. Everybody very well wrapped up, including, of course, Her Majesty herself. As usual, looking very robust, but she is an elderly lady after all. Got to be extremely careful. I hope they've put some grit down on that path. I think if we can't quite see, I can see her boots there. She's got stout boots on. And there are various local people, local children, handing her flowers. And there, just behind her, the Duke of Edinburgh, fully recovered, as far as we can tell, from his recent bout of illness. Of course, he was at Sandringham when he was rushed to hospital. A little bit of trouble with the heart. That was dealt with very quickly. And Prince Philip was very soon back at Sandringham, taking part in shooting and so forth, all the things the royal family likes to do around Christmas time. There's Her Majesty again, coming forward to get flowers handed. Those people have been standing out there in the cold for a long time, very keen to see her. As I say, tomorrow, the 60th anniversary of her accession to the throne. Young woman on a visit abroad in Kenya when she learned of the death of her father, King George, flew back to Britain to be greeted by Winston Churchill, who was then the Prime Minister. How many Prime Ministers has she seen since? Well, I can tell you. Do the sums, it's something like a dozen, probably more. Now the Queen carefully navigating the bits of water, is slippery and icy. Everybody being rather careful about it, including our cameraman. I think he's got to sort of mind how he goes there. Look at that, Queen just behind them, more flowers being handed over. The routine is always the same. Her Majesty takes the flowers from people, always delighted to have them. Well, she's got two bunches in her hand. Now, normally hands them straight on to one of her staff, but at the moment, I think the only people that are immediately available... Oh, is a police woman. Yes, a woman police officer there takes the flowers. I'm afraid Her Majesty's slightly obscure, but that very large copper there, look at that. Mind out the way, sir, please. We want to see the Queen, not you. Here she comes. At her great age, does enjoy... Oh, I recognise that man, I have to tell you. He is a royal fan of some standing. And what is he giving her? Isn't she lucky? What's this? Some sort of plaque, I would think. A picture. Thank you. Oh, she says, how nice. The Queen's ability to talk to everybody, show an interest in everybody, is legendary. And she's doing it again. He's a lovely chap there, I must say. But move on, please. Could you take this picture? It's a picture of me. Would you believe it? There we are. More flowers for Her Majesty. As I say, this church that she's been to, the service lasting quite a short one. Queen is always attends church on Sundays. She takes her religion extremely seriously, but this was quite a short service, lasting, in fact, less than 3/4 of an hour. And the weather we can see bits of snow around in the background, a lot of ice around. The Duke himself was due afterwards to go on to King's Lynn to take the salute at the 90th anniversary parade of the King's Lynn and District branch of the Royal British Legion. But that has actually been cancelled. Our correspondent there, who we hope to talk to in a minute, Mark Worthington, was saying that it's not surprising, the state of the local roads and so on, that won't be happening. I think there is a plan, though, that the Queen and her husband will be going to a village hall nearby. I think we can now talk to Mark Worthington, our correspondent. Mark, there's a lot of people, quite a lot of people brave the cold. I think she's heading into is it a hall she's going in now?
That's right, she's going into the village hall, which you can see over
my shoulder behind me. But on her way, she's taken a great amount of time to talk to greet, to take flowers from those who've come to see her here this morning. As she walked out of the church with Prince Philip, she came out to be greeted by a small group of children. As usual, she took flowers from them, and there was a burst of applause. Applause because the reason we're here, the reason many people are here, is that tomorrow marks the 60th anniversary of the Queen's accession to the throne. This, a special media event today to allow us to see the Queen on the eve of this important event, and clearly a huge amount of goodwill among those who've braved the snowy roads of Norfolk to be here this morning. There was only a small crowd when the Queen arrived to go into the church, and I then saw a number of families arriving, some running down the road. Clearly they'd been held up on their journey and they didn't want to miss the chance to see the Queen here this morning. And as she's been making her way along the crowd, she has been, as I say, taking a great deal of time to talk to those here. The palace clearly wanted this to be something of an event. That's why they highlighted it so much to the media. And the pictures that we're seeing are of the Queen engaging with those who have come here because they value what she is today and what she's given the country over the last 60 years.
Yes, indeed, Mark. It was interesting you were talking about the day tomorrow. Obviously, got to be tinged with sadness, hasn't she, as she thinks back, the Queen, to her father, King George VI, not a well man for a long time, finally did die February the 6th, 1952. I noticed the Queen usually spends tomorrow privately, but she does have a couple of engagements tomorrow. I don't know if you know about that, going to the town hall and to an infant school, Dersingham Infant and Nursery School, I think. Typical sort of engagements. Yes. That the Queen is, well, frankly, she's had a lot of practice, but she's very good at it.
That's right. It is something of a break with tradition, although it is her accession day, and that is a day for celebration this year in the Diamond Jubilee year. It is, of course, the anniversary of the death of her father, a death that she wasn't in the country for. She was in Kenya at a remote hunting lodge, and it was there that she became Queen, already Queen, when she set foot back on British soil to be greeted by the Prime Minister, Winston Churchill. And those two events tomorrow are very local ones here to the area around Sandringham, the area where her father, George VI, passed away. She is going to the town hall in King's Lynn and then on, as you say, to an infant and nursery school. And that will be another opportunity, like we've seen today, for the Queen to do what she enjoys best, getting to talk to the people who value her, who want to celebrate with her this Diamond Jubilee year.
And you mentioned people celebrating with her. It's going to be a very packed year for Her Majesty, isn't it? Lots and lots of events planned.
It is, and the fact that there are two tomorrow on a day in which she usually keeps herself to herself is perhaps a sign of what we're going to see over the coming weeks and months leading up to the celebrations in June. We know that Prince Philip, of course, has had his health difficulties. We know that he is going to be winding down slightly, perhaps not appearing with the Queen as frequently as he has done in the past. He's, of course, here this morning, but what we're going to see over the coming time is the Queen being extremely busy indeed, accompanied on a variety of different events by a variety of different members of the royal family. But I'm sure we can expect Prince Philip, as he is today, to be by her side to mark the most important occasions. And today, the eve of the 60th anniversary of her accession to the throne, is certainly one of those.
Mark Worthington at Sandringham, many thanks. The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh have been at church at Sandringham this morning, where they attended a service on the eve of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee anniversary. Tomorrow marks 60 years of the Queen's accession to the throne. Our correspondent Mark Worthington has been at Sandringham for us, and he's there now. Well, Mark, snowy and slippery there. Didn't deter the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, though?
Absolutely not. They arrived here in four-wheel drive vehicles. Those are the only ones it was felt were safe enough to go about on the snowy Norfolk roads. But here they were nonetheless, walking up to the church behind me, walking along the road, greeting the well-wishers who'd turned out to give them flowers, to exchange a few words on the eve of the accession day. And the Queen left driving past my shoulder here with a big smile on her face. And perhaps the reason why was what happened when she emerged from a small private event in the local village hall. The instant the door opened, we heard 3 cheers coming up from the crowd. Hip, hip, hooray. And she was clearly very pleased to have such a heartwarming occasion, such an outpouring of goodwill on this, an extremely important eve, because, as you say, tomorrow does mark 60 years since her accession to the throne. There is, of course, a note of sadness there as well. It was 60 years ago tomorrow that her father, George VI, passed away here at Sandringham. And the Queen herself at the time, not even in the country, in a remote hunting lodge in Kenya, and it was there that she became Queen. But this year is the Diamond Jubilee year. It is about celebration. And clearly, from the look on her face as she drove past me a few moments ago, the Queen is enjoying the start of a very busy and hectic schedule of events to mark the occasion.
Mark Worthington there in Sandringham, thanks very much. Bus, but she is an elderly lady after all. Got to be extremely careful. I hope they've put some grit down on that path. I think if we can't quite see, I can see her boots there. She's got stout boots on. And there are various local people, local children, handing her flowers. And there, just behind her, the Duke of Edinburgh, fully recovered, as far as we can tell, from his recent bout of illness. Of course, he...
Over the Libya business.
Right, let we interrupt that because we're going to go to Sandringham. Queen and Duke of Edinburgh been at church there, and they're just leaving. Our correspondent, Mark Worthington, I think, can join us. Mark? No, we're going to hear from him just a moment. But in the meantime, there we are. That's the royal family, or 2 members of the royal family. I'd say the 2 most senior members of the royal family. Very important day, because it wasn't to be for another year, but she became Queen then, and she has just been at a church service there in Sandringham, at the Church of St Peter and St Paul in West Newton, not very far from her country home of Sandringham, as I say. Everybody very well wrapped up, including, of course, Her Majesty herself. As usual, looking very robust. He was at Sandringham when he was rushed to hospital. A little bit of trouble with the heart. That was dealt with very quickly, and Prince Philip was very soon back at Sandringham, taking part in shooting and so forth, all the things the royal family likes to do around Christmas time. There's Her Majesty again, coming forward to get flowers handed. Those people have been standing out there in the cold for a long time, very keen to see her. As I say, because it's the eve of the anniversary tomorrow of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, because it was exactly 60 years ago, on February the 6th, 1952, that she was on a visit to Kenya, that she learned that her father, King George VI, had died. And she, of course, been on the throne, immediately became Queen. The coronation was